Welcome to Building the Future, hosted by Kevin Horick. With millions of listeners a month, Building the Future has quickly become one of the fastest rising programs, with a focus on interviewing startups, entrepreneurs, investors, CEOs, and more. The radio and TV show airs in 15 markets across the globe, including Silicon Valley. For full showtimes, past episodes, or to sponsor the show, please visit buildingthefutureshow.com.
Welcome back to the show. Today we have Rene Amador. He's the Chief Executive Officer and co-founder at ARwall. Rene, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited to have you on the show. I think what you guys are doing is probably, if not one of the coolest things I've ever seen, period. So,
wow. Okay.
Yeah, like I was blown away when I was checking out the videos and some of the stuff that you guys are doing. But maybe before we get into that, let's get to know you a little bit better and start off with where you grew up.
Yeah, absolutely. So I was born and raised in Silicon Valley, actually in Santa Clara, California. So, yeah, I was born at, if people know the Kaiser over there, that used to be by Central Park in Santa Clara, and then I grew up literally a block away from there. So I spent the first 18 years of my life right in the center of Santa Clara, down the street from HP and Apple and all these awesome companies.
That's a beautiful area,
my dad
too.
worked. Yeah, it's awesome, and my dad did work in the tech industry there as well.
Okay, very cool. So you went to university. What did you take and why?
Yeah, so I went to a local UC, which is the University of California, Santa Cruz, okay. Which is about half an hour south of Santa Clara. And I went there because they actually did have an awesome film program. My background is as a filmmaker, actually. So I took, I think it was film and digital media, and I got the production concentration, and I think I got department honors. So I did pretty good there. And thank you. Film and digital media was interesting. It was not, this was kind of, let's see, I was there from 2002 to 2006. And this was right at that stage where kind of everybody knew that web was going to be something, but they didn't quite know what. YouTube hadn't really been invented yet. So people were kind of like, hey, I can put a video on a website. So putting a video on a website, they decided to call that film and digital media. So I learned that entire process.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So you get out of school. Walk me through your career with some highlights along the way up until co-founding ARwall, and then we'll dive into ARwall.
Gosh, okay. Well, I actually have to go back in time because my career started in high school.
Nice.
So I think I probably created like a few like nonsense, little videos for classes and stuff like that through high school. But I at the end of high school, my senior year, with a few of my friends of mine, one of which actually works with me here at ARwall. Her name's Jocelyn, who was the assistant director on this first one.
Okay.
This video actually went viral. And what I mean went viral, it got 3 million views.
Wow.
Way back in 2002. This is pre-YouTube. Everything. It was called Real Ultimate Power, the official ninja movie. So if I have any Real Ultimate Power fans out there, this is what happened to those folks that made that video.
That's amazing. I remember that video.
You're kidding me. You're kidding me.
That's amazing. But keep going. Sorry to interrupt you.
Yeah. Honestly, when I was making that video, I mentioned my dad worked in the defense industry, and I was seriously talking about going into the Foreign Service, becoming an envoy in the State Department or in the CIA or something like that. So I was going to go into the defense industry at that time, and I was actually talking to the recruiters. But when this video went viral, I was like, okay, this is unbelievable. We were getting bombarded by fan mail and everything like that. I was like, this is something new. This is something I've never seen anybody do this before. Wow. Never heard of anybody do this before. I gotta pursue this.
Okay.
So I went full tilt into entertainment and filmmaking, and so that's when I committed to the film industry, and went to film school and everything like that. So while I was in film school, I continued to try and do that again and again. Like I would make a short film and then I would put it online, see if I could make it go viral or whatever. And obviously, you have a very level of success if you're trying to recreate that type of stuff, especially way back like in 2003. It was kind of like I was doing this. But because of that, I made a lot of stuff. I made an unusual amount of stuff. I think probably in college alone, I made something like 35 short films, which was just like ungodly number.
Sure.
And that's basically what I did all the time. And that meant that coming out of college, I had a very good, I didn't have 35 amazing gems of cinema, but I definitely had a few, two or three that were like, hey, this is pretty dang good. This is something special. So that's basically what I had at the end of college. And when I graduated, for those that remember 2006, this is right in the heat of World of Warcraft.
Oh yes, I was a gamer. Yes, I remember.
So I'm sure many careers of young people around my age just totally cratered because of World of Warcraft. And I absolutely admit that after graduating college, for about 3 months, me and basically everybody I knew was playing World of Warcraft and wasn't doing anything in the physical world. And I think after doing that for a few months, I kind of, for people that have played that type of game, at some point you just go like, gah. You have kind of like this disgusted response to the game, and that happened to me. And I kind of took stock of my life and thought, you know what, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to get a job in LA. That's for some reason that was the thing that I knew that I had to do. So I'm going to get a job in LA. So I actually started applying to jobs that I thought I might be qualified for in LA. This is while living in Santa Clara, in my parents' house, in my dad's house. So I lined up, I actually got 3 responses and lined up 3 interviews on the same week. So flew down there to LA, took these interviews. I ended up getting offered 2 of them.
Wow.
I know, right? And accepted one. And the one that I accepted was as a junior post coordinator doing trailers for a little boutique company. I think they might even exist still, called Wiser Post, that was located in Hollywood at the time. So I found out later there are actually 750 applicants to this role.
Wow.
And I was the top pick. So somebody this begins a long history of those types of I don't know if you call them victories or coincidences or just pure dumb luck. But
maybe all of those.
It's some devilish combination of all of them probably.
Sure.
And I think one thing that I definitely did have is I had those amazing short films I had made in college.
Sure.
And I had this belief that if I just made this stuff, that something would happen. And I think it's kind of like that, almost like you're too dumb to know what you don't know. Like I thought, like, oh, I'm just gonna make stuff, and then someday I'll be Spielberg. That's just how it works.
Sure.
And I think at least it at least got me my foot in the door.
Sure.
And I think that for people that are maybe wondering, like, how the heck do you do this type of thing, become a filmmaker, get into the entertainment industry, there is a good amount of luck, but there's also that, like, being kind of ready for that opportunity and believing that the opportunity is going to come. And that was huge, I think, early on in my career. Is kind of like, I wouldn't say faith, but kind of like just a kind of like belief that if you do good stuff, good things will happen. And I know that probably sounds naive in being in the entertainment industry, but it's worked out. It's worked out for me.
Sure. But I also think too is when opportunity presented itself to you, you took that opportunity, and maybe it was scary at the time and you figured it out. But a lot of people are given opportunities and never actually take those opportunities because of a handful of reasons. Is that fair to say in your case?
Absolutely. I think that's exactly it. And I think that's why I was talking about World of Warcraft a little bit, is because it wasn't just like I had this thing that I was going towards, but I also had this like very comfortable but somewhat, you know, I knew that it wasn't going to get further in my career. I had this like comfortable thing that I could do, and kind of being disgusted and, you know, repelled by that, I think also helped me kind of make that jump over to LA. I took this job. I come over. I moved to LA. So I don't have an apartment. I'm like literally living like in the Hollywood motel or something, like on Sunset. Just really the most like awesome, stupid, stereotypical, like, oh, I'm in Hollywood, like kind of like thing that I did. And that's basically how I got down here.
Amazing.
And this first job was awesome. I had this amazing boss. His name was Cisco. Cisco, if you're listening, you're amazing. Thank you so much. And he taught me a lot of what I kind of like. A lot of post-production is what it comes down to. A lot about post-production and how Hollywood completes these projects, and the unbelievable amount of attention and time that goes into these projects, which I think people would be shocked to learn, particularly for trailers, which you kind of think it's an ad, but people really, people are spending 6 months sometimes, often in teams of like 5 to 10 people, making these absolutely perfect. So that when you go, you know, and see these, that you just have to see the film. And I think kind of learning about how that process happens, almost like from the back end, like learning how filmmaking works from the end, and then kind of going backwards and figuring out like, okay, how does this project actually enter the marketplace? Is something that I was asked to think about from a very early on in my career. So one of the I worked on a bunch of projects that came out in 2007, 2008. One of the big ones was Transformers, the first Transformers, and I was actually given responsibility over the visual effects, managing the visual effects supervision and coordination for these trailers and TV spots and stuff like that.
Okay.
And that was my first. This is going to be relevant later on in my life, but this was my first experience learning what a mess these visual effects blockbusters can be, and being in situations where it's the 17th version of a visual effects shot, and
wow,
and you have these 16 old versions that you need to 100% not use. But they're like floating around here and there and everywhere, and trying to figure out like, how do you organize this, and how do you tell the difference between version 16 and 17 just with your eyes, without having any label on it or anything like that. So that level of visual acuity, kind of having to be trained on that and learn that, I think helped me a lot as I moved, because it continued on into my career. And ultimately, it also showed me that there was a tremendous amount of pain in the filmmaking process, that there's wasted time, there's a sense of disconnection, and to some extent disrespect, and power plays and stuff like that. And I have to say that when I got a sense of that, I really didn't like it. I come from a background of, my parents raised me to treat people fairly and if you ask people about me, I'm one of those people that kind of goes out of my way to try and be fair. I kind of have a thing about it.
Very cool.
So. Yeah, I mean, I kind of got this whiff of the entertainment industry that I almost like kind of didn't like.
Okay.
So I actually left that role. Yeah. Afterwards.
Okay. No, makes sense. So, walk me through what exactly is ARwall, and how did you come up with the idea?
Got it. So between working in trailers and ARwall, I co-founded a digital agency and commercial production company. This was called Automaton Creative, and I founded this with Jocelyn, my longtime business partner.
Gotcha.
With that, we did quite a bit of work in tech, and one of the companies that we created some promotional videos for was a company called Daiquiri.
Okay.
And for those of you familiar with augmented reality, Daiquiri is interesting. It's one of the first augmented reality companies. I think it was founded maybe around 2010, somewhere around there. And they initially were getting into mobile marker-based, like CG, like stuff for mobile.
Okay.
And I think that they eventually pivoted into headsets for industry, for enterprise, for factories, and that type of stuff. This was the first experience I'd ever had with augmented reality, and my task was figure out how. This is going to seem funny now. My first task was figure out how to show augmented reality on a camera.
Okay.
Because
Interesting.
that had actually never been done. People have done screen caps of like what was shown on their phone, but nobody had ever really done let me demo augmented reality using like a proper film camera.
Interesting.
So the way that we did this at the time was, of course, we tried to get the nicest phone with the biggest screen, and then we just shot the screen with the camera. So immediately I was like, okay, this is subpar. This is a suboptimal type of thing. So even then, even way back then, kind of having no thought of ARwall or augmented reality like visual effects or anything like that, I was already kind of thinking, how would I make this better? How would I get augmented reality looking nice on a camera? So then fast forward maybe 6 years.
Okay.
By this point, I personally directed over 350 commercials, short films, and pilots through this company. We just had tremendous success, and through the recession as well, which
very cool.
I take as a badge of honor.
Sure, fair enough. Yeah.
Some of our major clients are like Verizon, and we did some stuff for Fox and stuff like that. So starting to get into client services for entertainment companies, so continuing kind of after trailers, kind of continuing that type of stuff. So one day, my friend Michael Plesha, who's one of the co-founders of the company, he comes to me and he says, "Hey, I have this. Have you ever heard of augmented reality?" So of course, I'm like, "Hey, I have this. I had this experience with Daiquiri." So he goes, "Okay, I think that I have a solution to get rid of green screen using augmented reality."
Okay.
And so just give you an idea about my friend Mikey, he's a visual effects compositor.
Okay.
So he's one of those people that's day in, day out painting out, green out of people's hair for your favorite TV shows and films and that type of stuff.
Very tedious work.
It's very tedious work. Here's the thing you got to know about these guys. These are, I'm not even joking here. These are Leonardo da Vinci level artists that we've trained as a society, and then we have them sit in front of a computer and paint out green, so that we can have our amazing blockbuster films. So he's one of these guys that it adds tremendous value to films, but essentially works behind the scenes, completely unacknowledged and unrecognized. And I was one of these guys too. I would do visual effects compositing for any of the green screen projects that I would end up shooting. I would because of my background in visual effects, I would save $1 and just do it myself, right?
Sure.
So anyway, so we're a couple of guys that kind of come from visual effects and do this stuff ourselves. And we have this idea, and we also have this background kind of in CG and in AR. So basically what happens is I kind of pull together kind of the the dream team of people that I've worked with over the past 10 years and pull them together into a group of founders, and we create this company, ARwall. And for about a year, from January 2017 to January 2018, we fail. We fail a lot.
Okay.
We basically, yeah. I mean, of course, in retrospect, you're like, great. That's the exact thing that you should be doing. And I think, but when it's happening, it's very, very frustrating. It's probably the most stressful time of my life.
Sure.
Trying to figure out how to make this work and how to make, and basically this is the problem that we came down to. We thought, okay, we're just gonna go to somebody that's already working in real-time graphics, like for example, like a pre-visualization company. We're just gonna go to them, and we're gonna say, hey, we want to license your tool, and we want to do this new thing, and can we do that? And so we tried to do this, and what we realized was these systems aren't fast enough. There's like something like 4 to 11 frames of latency if you're doing pre-visualization, which is why these technologies have been stuck in this world of pre-visualization. So for those people that don't know, previs basically means on set, it's used to like see like, okay, where's the monster going to be in the shot? So that so the director and the director of photography can like line up the shot correctly.
Okay.
But it's something. But you never, the audience, you never see previs. Never. Right. It's always replaced afterwards in a process that we call post-production or visual effects. And so with 4 frames of latency, even with the fastest systems that we're using, that's unusable. Because basically what it means is you can't move the camera, which is like, that's not going to work. You have to be able to move the camera.
Okay, interesting.
So like, if you're familiar with like the Weather Channel and this type of stuff,
yeah,
you might see some what actually is in actuality pre-visualization technology.
Okay.
But one thing that you should notice is that the camera doesn't move quickly.
Right.
Like it's on a very slow moving like crane arm or something like that.
Sure.
And the reason that it's slow moving is because if it were to move quickly, you'd be able to see the CG slip, the tracking of the CG.
Okay.
Split off of the physical environment. And this is what we were facing. We were like, okay, this is great. We're going to use this. And then immediately the camera whips around and you see it slip away from the ground. And you're like, whoa, what's going on?
Okay.
So we realized we have to build this ourselves. So we go and we actually take consumer hardware that was invented for VR stuff and software, and we for lack of a better term, we hack it. Okay. We get a couple of hackers in the company. Our amazing CTO Leon Hui, whose background is in game development, he makes it happen. Okay. And it takes them about 6 months. Afterwards, we do this. And by the way, when I say that I ran a digital agency for 8 years, what I'm talking about is at this point where we haven't even built it yet and we're still trying to figure it out, we already have something like 500 companies that are interested in using this technology.
Wow. Okay. Pressure's on.
And that's simply because myself and my chief marketing officer, Eric Navarrete, we just talk nonstop about this. And we get everyone excited about this. So we do this. So we do this amazing showcase at Universal, at NBC Universal on the lot.
So how did you get that? You had relationships with them previous?
So yes, actually, two of our co-founders actually were working at NBC at the time. They were working on the second screen experiences for the live shows. Okay. So we're talking about like The Voice, AGT, SNL. They were working on these shows. Gotcha. Doing stuff for mobile essentially. So we get this on. They use they work their Hollywood magic and they get this meeting. So I get in there. I pitch this thing. on the universal lot, and just so people can picture it, behind me, I've got like a 12-foot by 8-foot LED video wall that we rented, provided by our amazing vendor Matrix Visual, by the way, that has been so supportive of us. So I got this 12 by 8-foot LED video wall. We're pitching this to every freaking person in Universal that'll listen to us.
Wow.
And we booked one. We booked one.
Okay.
Off of this demo. So this one project that we booked is Night Flyers.
Okay.
So this came out. This actually just came out last. Or I don't know when people are going to be listening to it, but for when we're recording it, it came out last month in December of 2018.
Yeah, it'll air this month. But yes, keep going.
Yeah. And so what we do there for them is we put up a 35-foot by 15-foot LED video wall, just a massive billboard size thing, and we do this for their space scenes. So anytime that you're in the spaceship, looking out of a window, that's our product essentially. And that was our first project. And the fact that we were able to get that, essentially, I think probably within 60 days of actually completing the product, that's unheard of. For example, I've spoken to people that have created similar tools in filmmaking, where they said that it took them a full year to close anything after completing the product. So I think part of what we did correctly was we started hyping it before we were done.
Interesting.
I come back to it again, like I wouldn't necessarily say faith, but maybe belief that if you do something good, if you're doing good work and you really believe in it, that good things are going to happen. And just having that kind of like, again, dumb kind of like luck of being kind of knowing that someone is going to get value out of this and kind of just trusting that, I think meant that by the time that we were ready to kind of sell, we already had this kind of backlog of people that were interested in the technology, which was awesome. It also, and I just want to be clear, it also can get you into trouble. I've been in many scenarios where we kind of told people that stuff was going to happen and it didn't happen.
Sure.
And then they're kind of going, what's going on? So it does cut both ways. But I think kind of the part of my job as a CEO is to manage expectations for people as we move forward. And if you can be good at being clear with people, like, look, there's a high likelihood, but also we're startups, so anything can happen. I think that you'll be okay taking this type of strategy.
Interesting. No, I think that's really good advice. So I want to dive a little bit deeper into exactly what ARwall is and does, because I think people might have an understanding at this point, and I know it's hard to sum it up, and people really just need to go to the website and watch the videos that you have on it. But how do you describe it without a visual aid?
Sure. Okay, so I've gotten pretty good at this, as you can imagine.
Sure.
All right. So if you can imagine, let's say that you're looking at a TV, and right next to it is a window that is exactly the same size. So you've got a TV on the wall, and then right next to it, you've got a window on the wall. Okay. And so you're watching something let's say you're watching a nature show. You've got some beautiful landscape on the TV. And then outside the window, you've got a beautiful actual landscape, meaning that it's a real environment through that window. Now, let's say you step forward towards the window and the TV. Okay. What you'll experience is on the window, you will experience a parallax, meaning that there'll be a sense of depth and 3D space on the other side of that window. But on the TV, it's a static 2D image that's on the TV, meaning there's no sense of parallax. It just looks like, an image on a surface. And what our technology is saying is, on the TV, you will have the illusion that you're looking through that window.
Very cool.
Meaning that as you travel toward the screen, away from the screen, left, right, up, down, in 6 degrees, you will have the illusion looking at that TV as if you were looking through a window into any 3D environment. That's the fundamental technology. So what we're essentially doing for motion picture effects is creating gigantic windows that we then place behind the actors and the sets, so that instead of having to build the physical set or going to an actual location, they can simply have the illusion from the perspective of the camera as if it was a window into any environment. So for Night Flyers, we did space scenes. So basically there were planets, there was a star field, there was spaceships and stuff. And then we've also done natural scenes, just like I mentioned, where it was, we're in a forest or something like that.
Right.
So that's essentially, I hope, without visual aid or anything, that I hope people can imagine that you can look at a screen, a TV or an LED video wall, and have the illusion, either as a camera or as an individual, as if it's a window into that world.
Sure, and it moves, and you get the perspective changes as you move around, right? Just like you do it whether you're wearing like a VR headset or something, or in real life.
Correct. So one way to think about it is this: like when you're wearing a VR headset, your eyes are always looking at 90 degrees to the little screens in the headset. So you're always locked at 90 degrees.
Right.
And what we're saying is, okay, you can take the screens that are in that headset and enlarge them all the way so that it's a gigantic wall, 20-foot wall.
Sure.
And then instead of being stuck just looking at 90 degrees at the screen, instead you can look at it at any angle. And we will, what our technology does is, as you move in real time, meaning that faster than your eye can perceive, or faster than the camera can perceive, the distortion that you would normally perceive on that screen will go away, and you'll perceive no surface, as if it's a window into the virtual environment. So yes.
Very cool. No, that's amazing. The other thing too that I want to cover is, instead of using, it's basically a green screen replacement, but people can use 3D or other sources of content to actually be playing in the background on these screens while you have physical objects and people in front of it, and then you film that. Is that a simplified version of what they can do with your technology?
That's exactly correct. So from the perspective of the filmmaker, what they're looking at our technology as is an alternative to green screen visual effects. So what I mean by that is, when most people imagine like something like Lord of the Rings, right?
Sure.
You've got Gandalf in front of a gigantic green screen. He's talking to a tennis ball on a pole. There's complete confusion as to what's going on. So I think it's for those instances where you want to create a sense of reality on set, and you want to be able to put your actor and your sets or your physical objects in a place that they could never be. So the way to do that in the past has been green screen, right? And what we're saying is, here's an alternative. And the alternative is actually interesting, because when you move the camera with green screen, it instantly becomes a more expensive shot than if you were to not move the camera.
Okay.
Meaning that when you move the camera, all of a sudden the background of the greens, the background that you're replacing the green screen with has to be fully 3D. It has to be completely 3D environment, meaning it's got to be modeled by somebody in Maya, essentially, as opposed to a 2D, what we call 2D plates, which is just like something that you can build in Photoshop. It's pretty easy.
Right.
So the result of that is that there's actually a disincentive to move the camera in green screen productions. And I mean that in a very serious sense, that sometimes a producer or a line producer will go down your shot list and literally say, this tracking shot is no longer moving. Okay. I mean, we'll dictate to you, this moving shot is no longer moving. This is a still shot. Because what they're doing is they're going through the budget and actually they're marking up the moving shots higher because they know they're going to be more expensive.
Right.
So as a filmmaker, when you're shooting on these green screen shoots, like for example, if you got $100 million or more for your budget, you're doing okay. But for everybody else, you've seriously got to choose which of these shots are going to be moving if you're shooting green screen, and that's a real thing. I'm not making this up. It's a real consideration. So what we're talking about is trying to get rid of that paradigm and go back to a paradigm more like rear projection. Now, the problem with rear projection, ironically, was the same. You couldn't move the camera. So with rear projection, you're getting benefits of like physical photons and everything like that. It's basically the process that was used before green screen. So like by Hitchcock, if you're doing the famous driving shots in Psycho, those, for example, those are rear projection.
Okay.
And so what we're doing is coming back to that type of process where it's physical photons, and more importantly, you can capture the illusion on set. And this changes from a budgetary standpoint. It costs less. It also takes less time because there is no visual effects for these shots. It also conceivably gets better performance out of the actors and out of everyone else because they can see what's happening.
Sure. Interesting. Yeah, and you can also use other common, a lot cheaper 3D software to render the imagery that's displayed on these screens, correct?
Correct. So I mean, we can display anything. So we can even display 2D. We can display 2D video, and if, for example, if there's a very limited amount of movement required. But mostly what we've been up to is trying to create photorealistic environments.
Okay.
And so these are photorealistic real-time graphics. Okay. So like what that means essentially is this is similar to the types of real-time engines that are used for video games.
Sure.
Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah, no, that's actually quite fascinating. So you touched on the motion picture stuff, but I want to talk about some interactive experiments and some kind of location-based stuff that I could maybe have at home.
Yeah. So I'll certainly say that anybody that tells you that that they got something ready for AR in the home is trying to yank your chain. We're probably, as an industry, we're probably at least 2 years out from something like that.
Okay.
So this has been a constant point of contention for those of us in the industry, and I'll explain what I mean.
Okay.
So I think most people are probably familiar with VR. You've got these headsets.
Yeah.
It creates an entire world inside this headset, right?
Sure.
And what a lot of people might not know is the VR industry has been having some serious issues. Yeah. Very, very serious. So I think that the numbers in general for the forecast of how many VR headsets were going to be sold has probably been like maybe 50% of the expectations, meaning the actual amount of headsets that have been sold. So a lot of the financial projections that have been made for VR companies in general have just fallen apart. I mean, the economics just are never going to work. So unfortunately, there's been quite a few VR companies that have actually closed up in the past 6 months. It's been tough. And a lot of those that have been here in LA. So we're hearing all sorts of crazy stuff. So the saving grace, the one thing that the VR and AR industry have going for them is what we're calling location-based entertainment.
Okay.
This used to also be called experientials. I think LBE as a short term has kind of taken over.
Yeah.
So what this means is like you go basically you're kind of like your Dave and Buster's, your laser tag type of experiences. You go somewhere, they have this amazing technology, you use it, you pay it like a per use fee, and then you go home essentially with nothing. Only the warm glow of the experience. And one of the reasons for this has been obviously people don't want to buy these. So I think just kind of renting these is a better opportunity for a lot of people who are kind of interested in using this technology. So what we've kind of gone into is what does augmented reality kind of look like in this space? Since VR has been having so much trouble elsewhere, we're kind of thinking AR might have similar types of issues. So how do we kind of step into this world? And last month at the Paramount on the Lot event, we actually debuted something completely new, a new technology that we're calling AR 3D. And this is an interactive version of our core technology that uses depth sensors, not unlike the Kinect. Uses depth sensors to track the head of an individual. So instead of tracking the position of a camera, we're tracking the position of an individual's eyes. And as you move around, you get this window illusion on a TV or on a large screen as an individual. So to be clear, this is no headset, no wearables, no goggles, no markers, nothing. This is just your body.
Interesting. And so what types of experiences are you looking to provide people either today or in the near future?
So I think I can tell you what we've been getting the most demand is definitely in retail. Lifestyle brands, fashion brands, electronics, and auto brands. They're very interested in getting people richer, deeper, more interactive experiences with their product, with their purchasing experience. And I think also brick and mortar in general is looking for how to bring millennials in through the door and keep them there and keep them coming back. So I think AR as location-based entertainment is something that we're going to be focusing on. So the types of experiences that we built, though, have been more gamer-oriented. So we've built an experience we're kind of calling like Dragon Lords. It's a dragon flying game where you kind of fly around like a fantasy world. You kind of, you can flap the wings with your arms and steer and fly fast and glide and that kind of stuff. So that's the kind of like the stuff that we're focusing on at the moment. But that's really only because we need to really prove out the more difficult stuff. So for example, like interfacing with a 3D menu or something like that, we've got that kind of nailed. Right now we're trying to get into puppeteering 3D characters on screen, so that you can actually control, your favorite character, let's say from your, film or TV.
Hello?
On the screen. That starts to get very interesting when we start thinking about movie posters, interactive movie posters that might be at malls or movie theaters or that type of stuff.
Sure. No, that's actually really quite fascinating, because if I had one of these at my home, you could potentially unleash a ton of stuff to me that's streaming to me. Like I could virtually be in a store or at a concert or anywhere, right? And interact with some of these items that I think put a clothing, you could virtually put them on and yeah, interesting.
I think one way I'm a little bit of a sci-fi nerd. So one way that I sometimes think about it is if this were in the home.
Yeah.
What we would probably try and make it is a floor to ceiling screen. Sure. Like let's say it's like a 10 by 10 foot screen that is placed in one wall of your house, maybe the living room or something like that.
Sure. And
what this would essentially serve as is like one wall of the holodeck, like the holodeck from Star Trek, The Next Generation, or DS9 or Voyager. What we're talking about here is it'd be a portal for you to be able to have the sense of continuous convincing space from your environment to another environment. And so whether that's a party or a restaurant or a store, whatever it happens to be, that's really what we're talking about. And us as creators of the technology, our job is to create a platform where you can do anything, right? But I think once people kind of get into this, what I'm hoping will happen is just as kind of we broke through this barrier of like communication, speaking to people over video chat and phone and stuff like that, we're going to have this breakthrough of like being in the same space as other people.
Yep.
Really kind of sharing the same spaces. And this is, rich people, poor people, and everything in between. So it's going to be very interesting.
Yeah. No, that's actually really quite fascinating. I'm curious to see really where you guys take this in the next 18 months to 2 years, right? Because a ton of stuff can happen, and I'm really curious to see what you guys do with this. But we're coming to the end of the show, so maybe let's close with mentioning where people can get more information about you guys and actually check out some of the videos so they can actually see the technology at play.
Absolutely. So if you're interested in checking out our videos and seeing what we've been up to, everything is going to be on arwall.co. Just to be clear, that's .co. And if you are in the industry and you're actually interested in getting a hands-on demo, and you're located in LA or you happen to be visiting LA, we actually do have a lab, a demo lab that is in Burbank that we just opened. So you're very welcome to come by and check it out.
Perfect, man. Well, I really appreciate you taking the time out of your day to be on the show, and I look forward to keeping in touch with you, and have a good rest of your day, man.
Awesome. Thanks so much. It was a real pleasure. A lot of fun. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, bye.
Bye.
Thanks for listening. Please visit our website at buildingthefutureshow.com to join the free community, sign up for our newsletter, or to sponsor the show. The music is done by Electric Mantra. You can check him out at electricmantra.com and keep building the future.